Dan,
Yes.
what happened last week?
Oh boy, it was a rough week, a very rough week. Down and out with an illness.
Yeah, what happened? Because I know that you were not feeling well, and then I kind of wasn't feeling well. I don't know if I am feeling well, but regardless, we're finally back.
We are back, and we're back, and I am very excited about this episode today.
I am too, but I'm also a little worried because Dan, I don't want you to look. Just keep looking over here at me. But there is a stranger sitting across from us at the table. Don't look. Just take a quick glance and tell me what's this all about.
Yeah, it's pretty exciting. We have a first for the Wood Hound Podcast. First time ever, we have a special guest.
We have a special guest.
Yeah.
And it's not just any special guest, but this is a major league high profile person in the industry. And I would love to welcome our guest. His name is Austin Roberts. He is the co-founder and general manager of LogOx. Austin, how are you doing?
Thanks for having me, guys.
That's awesome.
Doing well.
Austin. The LogOx has quickly become one of the go-to tools. And Dan, you have one too, don't you?
I do, and I love it. And I must first say, I'm going to just start off, Austin. A couple things. I want to thank you for your service, because I know that's part of your story. I want to thank you for being here, but most importantly, my lower back wants to thank you for the LogOx.
I love it.
Well, I'll pass that along to John as well, and he's really one of the main creators and the inventors of the product, and I'm just fortunate to be working with him and Lynn and starting this company. You know, we're an overnight success, 6 years in the making here. We've been doing this since 2016 now, which is hard to believe looking back on it. So, yeah, absolutely, I'll pass that along to him. I'm sure I'll be happy to hear that.
That comes off as a surprise to me. I just had it in my head that the LogOx been around a lot longer than 6 years.
Yeah, time flies, huh? It's one of those tools where I wish I had one growing up, and that sort of was part of the onus for John, making it and inventing it in the first place. Was that my mom and him and my sister and I, we all used to get together and harvest firewood. That was part of the yearly tradition up in Vermont and New Hampshire, where we grew up. And myself and my sister moved away, went to college, moved on far away, and now John needed a better system for himself to be able to haul these log rounds, to feed a log splitter. And that's kind of where it initially came from, was the idea: how do I get it from the ground up onto a log splitter? Because that was one of the main pain points for him. And he was, his background is a chemical engineer by trade. He's a pretty solid math and physics guy. And he figured out a way of basically turning a cant hook, a short cant hook, which he initially played around with, but found that it slipped out, 50, 60% of the time. So he was able to set up the handle of the product itself in such a way that it uses the weight of the log to lock itself into place every time you pick it up and put it onto a splitter. So once he kind of perfected that design, we built off of that into what we have today, which includes, of course, the cant hook and also the timberjack attachment.
Yeah, I think what the LogOx was just the perfect tool is for that guy or gal who loads up the pickup truck, gets their saw, and heads out to the woods. Because it's not just the one tool; it's 3-in-1, and now it's 4-in-1. Is that right?
Yeah. So there's the Picaroon attachment that goes that we sell with the Forester pack, and we also sell that separately. Because we used to use a Picaroon, a standard standalone Picaroon, which is typically a $60-$70 item if you have a decent one. And we just realized that, hey, with this handle attachment that we have, we could mill a piece to go into it and use the same exact pin system, which we've improved in 2022 with the swing lock hinge pin. So now it's not 2 parts anymore. And we could just add that to it, and now we have the perfect kind of pickaroon to go with it. And we picked the tip that we wanted. We basically used a pulp hook tip, so he's got that keyhole design to it too. But it has that. If you look at it closely, it has that little nub underneath it. Sort of operates a little bit like a fish hook, where it will lock into the wood pulp, and it won't fall out until you give it a purposeful front, forward, and back shake to it, and then it will release easily. But what's great is if you got the hauler in one hand, the pickaroon in the other, you can grab two pieces when you're yarding firewood out. Grab one in the other, and it cuts your time in half. And it's also,
Yep.
you're also not bending over with that. So
Yeah, that's the one thing I haven't tried yet, but I'm kind of looking forward to that, because I've never had a pickaroon or a hookaroon, and so and I think adding that on there, that was another. So it really is, like you said, it's a 4-in-1 tool, the complete package.
Yeah. The standard 3-in-1 forestry tool doesn't come with it, but the Forester pack does. It also comes with a hauler holster, which if you're using it with a log splitter, it's definitely handy to have, because you just set it in that, operate your log splitter, grab another piece, and it's handy for that. And then of course we also developed a bag. We call it the Carryox bag. We make it in North Carolina. And it's a cotton canvas bag that we specifically designed for the product itself. So it's got plenty of room in there for the LogOx, but then also room for PPE, scrunch, extra chains. It's got 2 large internal pockets, and then I put my chainsaw chaps on top of it. And we designed it with the handles being long enough and wide enough so you could wear it over your shoulders like a backpack. So when we go out, typically our flow is that we'll go out in the springtime before the buds really start to pop, and we'll look for those down trees that are either leaning. Usually they've got a root bulb that are still attached with it, and we'll go out and we'll scout around there. So we'll have the LogOx with us carrying that, and then a chainsaw on the other hand. And what's beneficial about doing it that way at that specific time of the year is, one, there's not a lot of brush. The weather's good. There's not a lot of bugs, so you can go out there and kind of walk around your property line, and then find these trees that have come down or you want to take down for management purposes. And then when you separate the log from the tree from the root bulb, what will happen is it'll fall on the ground, and then nature will take its course, and those bulbs will sprout, and the leaves will come out. And what that'll do is it'll draw moisture out of the tree itself. So it starts that seasoning process. It starts to actually season itself. So it's gonna cut down the amount of time it takes to get that moisture out of the tree. And then the fall time rolls around, and you can go buck it up and then stack it and season it however you like. But we always found that's a great way of kind of doing it throughout the season. So we created a bag that would allow us to scout easily, or just throw it in your ATV or in your back of your tractor or wherever. It keeps the entire tool together. So now you have 4 tools in a bag that's about 30 inches long, and you can carry it easily. So.
Yeah. So Austin, you are not the inventor of the LogOx. You came, what part of the process, from when it was invented, or did you get started when it got into like mass production?
Yeah. So the LogOx, in and of itself, the process was probably about, I don't know, somewhere 5 to 7 years or so of John putzing around with this thing. I think probably the day we left for college was the day he tried to figure out how to do this. Would be my guess. And so anyway, so he had a bunch of like really kind of crude prototypes and different cant hooks that he had hacked in half, and we're trying to figure out different ways of doing it. And then he finally got sort of the the mechanics of it correct. And he applied for a patent. I think in 2015 was when he applied for a patent, and then was looking around for different contract manufacturers. He worked with a great company called Swisher out of Missouri. Every single thing that we sell, whether it's our products or anyone else's that we drop ship, are all made in the United States, 100%. So they make it for us there in Warrensburg, Missouri. And so he had that set up. And was kind of in the process of what do I in the summer of 2016. He was kind of in the process of, well, what do I want to really do with this? Now it's like, I've got it patented. We found a manufacturing partner, and I've been working with him on some of the marketing stuff and sort of the instrumental like setups of getting the business going sort of on the side as I was still in the Army. I was an Army officer, and 2016, like late spring, early summer, he just got caught. He was a C-suite executive type who was running 3 different companies for this Austrian firm that just decided they were going to clean house and to no fault of his own, his companies were profitable. They just basically laid off their entire executive team throughout North America, and he got
Wow.
caught up in that. They brought in their own guys. It's just kind of how the corporate world works. So he found himself just sort of surprisingly out of a job as a 60-year-old guy. Not a lot of great prospects out there for someone at a similar commensurate pay grade doing something in the corporate world at another company just out of the blue. So, he was trying to kind of figure all that out. And I, at the same time, I'd been with my wife basically long distance for 8 years, as she was going through medical school, and I was, bouncing around the world in the Army. I was in Afghanistan for a year. I was, Europe, CENTCOM, the Middle East. So, I finally decided, hey, it's time. It's either one of these decisions. You kind of get a fork in the road in the military. It's either, hey, stay in, make a full career of it, or get out. And so I chose the latter path to finally be with my wife, and great decision. I'm very glad I made. And but I didn't really have an idea of what exactly I wanted to do with that. I just knew that, hey, I want to finally be with my wife. So at the sort of the same time, our paths crossed, and I just said, hey, why don't we just try to make a go of this business and see what we can do with it? He's looking for a job. I'm looking for a job. We'll do it kind of part time and just see what we can do with it. But I think we've got a product here, because I was really sold with it that fall when I came home, and he had a working prototype. It was plate metal at the time. It was a kind of a flat steel, and that was the first generation of it. But I was working with him in the woods, and I said, Dad, this thing's an amazing tool. Like, just there's so much more we can do with it. I wish you invented this thing a lot earlier, And so I was just really sold on it just that fall when I came home and was visiting. We were using it. So that winter when I finally got out, I was like, hey, let's just try doing this. And he had taken it to a trade show here and there, and some local county fair type stuff, and gotten good feedback. At that point, he was already starting to make it with Swisher. But 2017 was really kind of the launch of the company as it's known today. And we moved to tubular steel. And what that did was, first of all, it made it a lot stronger. We were able to use the pins, which now are the swing lock 1-part pin. But that allows us to add attachments to the handle, like the picker we were discussing.
Yeah.
So that was a big improvement for it.
So Austin, this is a family affair then. So the inventor is John, your dad. Mm-hmm. You're involved, your mom is involved, and mm-hmm. you all have formed your own work group, your own corporation.
Yeah.
And I mean, holy cow, you've taken the proverbial idea and you've made a worldwide respected product out of it.
Yeah, no, I appreciate you saying that. It's Peter Thiel wrote a book called 0 to 1. And the idea basically is it goes from 0 being something that's on a whiteboard or on a cocktail napkin to 1 being an actual product that people want, need, and desire. So it's been interesting to see that growth. I was just in the UK this September at the APF show, which is kind of their version of the TCI Expo. I'd say it'd be comparable to that. Just massive show that was over in the UK that we were with our partners Service International at. Selling LogOx and just the feedback. It's every time I love going to shows. I especially love going to this one because usually I'll go to shows and people have at least seen it. Maybe seen it on YouTube or something, but people were blown away by it in the UK because they'd never seen anything that was like it before. And they don't really use timber jacks or cant hooks over there. The primary thing that people in Europe use are these felling levers, which I think there's some utility to that here, and that may be an idea a little bit down the road. But basically, a felling lever, for people who aren't familiar with it, is kind of what it sounds like. It's like a giant 30 or so inch long metal spatula that has a tiny little hook that kind of resembles a cant hook. And so the tree starts to lean, and they'll just take it and kind of pry the tree into position, or they'll use the little hook to try to roll it, and they'll use that same hook, and they'll use it kind of like a cant hook to roll the trees that are down the logs. And when I showed them our cant hook and how much, compare the two side by side, how much more leverage they're going to get, how much easier it is, what a more robust tool it is, and then also showed them the timber jack, where it's like, hey, this 5 to 12, 13 inch diameter stuff that you're kind of risking your chain to, running it into the ground, pinching your bar. You can just prop this thing off the ground and just hot saw your way through it. They were amazed by it. And we sold a bunch. It happened to be going on right at the exact same time as the pound crisis. I don't know if you guys remember that from the fall, where the pound just absolutely plummeted, and there was a massive financial crisis going on at the exact same time. But we still sold a bunch of them there, and it was great. That was our first show overseas. But yeah, to your point, Joe, it has become an international brand, and we do sell around the world.
Awesome.
And yeah.
Well, how many countries has the LogOx been sold to?
Individually, it's hard to say. We've sold onesie twosies to basically every country in Europe at this point. We've sold some randomly in South America and even a couple in Africa. We did a 3-in-1 kind of a Kickstarter in Japan. Actually, there was some entrepreneurs who brought it on for a Kickstarter campaign. It did pretty well with that on sort of their version of Kickstarter called Makeki. And so we actually sell a lot to Australia, and people there pay almost as much for the shipping as they do for the actual tool itself.
Oh wow!
Yeah, it's still pretty impressive because they watch a lot of the American YouTube stuff, so they see this stuff, and they recognize the value of it. It's got the thing about it is it's got a lifetime guarantee. It's really you're replacing with the tool. The tool runs at $229 retail. But you're really replacing $350 worth of different tools. And not only that, but you're also consolidating it into one bag that you're carrying with you. And what's sort of unique about it as a cant hook or as a timberjack, I think really is it goes down to the first of all, what it's made of. It's made out of really high grade American steel that we powder coat. So it's weather protected. It's built to last a lifetime. We get a lifetime guarantee on it. But the hook in and of itself was something that we had to design. And we if you look at our hook, it's a little bit different. Typically, you'll see the duckbill style rounded belly hook that most cant hooks or PVs look like. If you look at a typical one, right? Ours has a little bit of a right angle to it. And part of that allows it to, when you're using it for the hauler, to be able to dig into the log. And also the tip of it's very, very sharp. People ask us what that little hole is. You've probably seen it at the top of the hook. And what that hole is actually is it's a manufacturing process. So every time we laser cut the hooks and we precision grind them with 3 different angles, so the geometry there lends itself to being very sharp and strong. It's locked into that position, and we're able to grind it very precisely every single time. So it's sort of a manufacturing. But in and of that, it creates a hook. And then the toe, as you see, is sort of like a chisel. So it's very aggressive as well. And we had to do that because we had to make sure that it would dig into the pulp of the wood when you're using it as a hauler. So you're picking up a 50, 60 pound block of wood. You don't want that to slip. So you have the mechanical, leverage of the tool in and of itself. But then, you can't just rely on that. So you have to have a very aggressive toe and hook. And so what that does is it makes it a great cant hook. Whereas some cant hooks, there isn't even really a toe. It just sort of relies on gravity, running it in, holding it against the tip of the hook.
Right.
And the hooks are a little bit wobbly, and they're not really that sharp. And so especially some of the imported stuff that's out there, which is just god awful. So between the strength of the body itself, and then also the hook and the toe. It's one of these things where it's also a great cant hook. Even if you were just to take out the whole hauler aspect, which is the unique patented sort of part of it, take away the fact that you can fit 3 tools into a bag and carry that with you, so you're not taking a bunch of stuff with you. If you were just go pound for pound against a 42-inch, similar cant hook, I would definitely do that any single time. Because sometimes
totally agree.
Because sometimes you'll get people who are like, well, hey, it's a jack of all trades, so therefore it must be a master of none. But it's again, I would put it pound for pound against any other similar size length cant hook that's out there.
Yeah. How many LogOxes are out there in the world? How many have you sold? Millions and millions and millions.
I think we're up to about 20,000 or so that are out there in the world.
Yep.
Yeah, that's amazing.
Just rough estimate.
Yeah. I know that, like, when I first showed the LogOx to my dad. He saw it and he was like, you know what is this, really? But then the moment I had him use it, he was instantly sold. And so is that kind of the response you get when you go to these trade shows or like overseas? Is like people see it, but they're not quite sure what it can really do. But then once they like pick up that first round with it, it's over.
Yeah. No, that's a great point, and that's why I think we do so well at these trade shows, and why when we started at it's the not bragging, but it is the best rated and one of the best selling. It varies by the day. Forestry tools, hand tools of its kind on Amazon. By far the best rated. Over 2,000 reviews, average about 4.8 stars for it. Right. So, but we really saw a big uptick in the sales when we were able to add a video to it. Because the descriptions, people read the description, but like when you sort of see it, it just intuitively makes a lot of sense about what that will do to really benefit you. And then when you see it at a trade show and you're able to get hands on and use it yourself, it's game over at that point, because it's like, okay, well, where do I get one of these? And that's always really rewarding. What's even more rewarding, honestly, Dan, is when somebody who's bought one the year before or previously comes up to us and says, to us like, hey, thank you. Like, this has changed the way that I process firewood. This has added years of longevity to a thing that I love to do. Some people I need to do. And that's what's really, honestly, really rewarding to us, is this sort of those two different kind of customers you run into. Somebody's never seen it before, and somebody who has and have used it and come back and tell you about it. And that's why I love going to shows. And I have no plans of stopping. We've got some coming up this year that we're going to be going to.
What is in the future for the sales of the LogOx? And I don't mean like any other new products that you might come out with, but like the 4-in-1 tool, the LogOx that we all know and love. Do you project future growth where it's just going to become more and more visible and become that go-to tool for anyone that's that works with trees?
Yeah, I certainly think it should. I think that part of having a company, whether you're selling firewood, whether you're selling a product, whatever it is, you have to have just sort of this deep and abiding belief that your product is what's going to help people and do it better than other products that are on the market. And if you don't, you need to make it so that it is. And if it isn't, then what are you even doing? So we in 2021 realized that there were some limitations to the product that we had, that from different feedback that we had received, everything from our customers obviously giving us feedback, to YouTube videos, review videos, YouTube comments, things we'd seen, just a variety of different feedback. We're sort of this idea of just continual and never-ending improvement, right? So we took these different ideas, and as we were sort of sitting around, we basically were able to boil them down to 5 key improvements for the tool. And one was, hey, let's get a longer handle for this. Let's give it more leverage, because it's 38 inches. So we tried, hey, let's bring this out to 60 inches. Let's try to bring it out to 48 inches. We played with all those different things, and what we found was that if it's too long of a handle, right, that there may be a slight deflection with it because of the diameter of the steel that you're using. If you go too large in the diameter, if you look at a lot of cant hooks that are out there, you're going to notice that like a 60-inch one is going to be a larger diameter than what ours currently is, right?
Yep.
When they're using aluminum. So it's also going to be a lot heavier. So what we didn't want to do is we didn't want to change the diameter of the steel, because then that sort of defeats the purpose of the hauler. We want the hauler to be as lightweight as possible for lifting logs and or log splitter for yarding stuff out. So we eventually settled at 40. So we got up to 40 inches, which is sort of a standard medium. 42 inches is a standard medium size cant hook for the industry, and we put it at that. The other thing was the pins. People didn't really like the fact that they were, 2-part pins, that were there, even though there are only 3 of them total, which is the handle to the hauler and then the 2 pins for the timberjack. People didn't like those. Mm-hmm. We didn't really like those. We'd been actually looking for a long time for a replacement, but then we came across this swing lock design that was out there. Is used in a variety of different industries. We found that, we added that to it. So now we have these 3 swing lock pins. You can, even with a set of gloves on, you can change the stuff out pretty quickly. And then the other thing we added to it as well was it used to be a 4-inch handle, the cross handle. We moved that out to 4.5 inches. And And so now for folks with larger hands and for people using gloves, it's just a little bit more that you can really get into that. So we made that just a little bit wider. And then the other thing too we did was the hook, right? So the hook used to be black. The whole thing, as you know, is orange. Um, and we had some folks who were said, "Hey, do you sell replacement hooks?" And we had, "Oh, okay, why did it bend? Did it break? What happened?" Like, "No, I hit it with my chainsaw." And so, your initial reaction is like, "How did you do that?" It's just like
Yeah.
you know, it seems kind of silly. But we sort of put ourselves in the shoes of our customers, and actually even called some of these people up and just asked, like, "Hey, can you explain like what happened?" When usually the answer was like, "Well, it was kind of low light. Hey, I was rushing. Hey, and the black, in all honesty, with a dark bark, it kind of blends in a little bit, right?" So anyway, so we're like, "Well, hey, why don't we just fix this for everybody and make it orange?" So we just changed it to an orange. We powder coated it orange instead of black, and so now it stands out better.
Oh, wow.
Because we have a lot of folks who are using this for storm people in the sort of B2B space. That's the other kind of element to this is we're selling this to a lot of professional arborists, people who are cleaning up after storms, and it's not always the best weather out there, and they're working quickly. So we wanted to just add that little touch to it to change that and make that even better. And then and then finally was the Bigfoot Timberjack attachment. And so with the Bigfoot Timberjack attachment, we had gotten feedback and we'd seen it ourselves. And we're using this ourselves. So we'd also noticed that it kind of sinks into the softer ground. And also we use it for skidding, for dragging logs. So we thought to ourselves, okay, well, how can we take what we currently have, which is like everybody else, just a little tubular steel, right? How can we make that better? Because as we're in the process of making this better, and so what we came up with, and John and I both worked this out through some different designs, is basically it's like a ski tip. Basically, how a ski flips up at the end, so you can ski down a hill. Well, so we created a curve on the front of this, and just basically a couple inches of plate steel. So now you've got 3 times more ground coverage as the previous one had, and then you also have it flip up on the front of it. And what that allows you to do is kind of rock it back. So it creates sort of this rock. So when you're initially rocking the tool back to get it set up as a timberjack, if you want to buck something right then and there, it's handy for that because you can just kind of roll it back easily. But then when you sort of have it on that edge, that curved edge, it's easy to just drag it along. So there isn't that much connection with the ground. Especially if you're on, if you're on a road or some kind of packed hard area where you're trying to just, do storm clearance.
Yeah.
So then also, and then also the benefit of that is it doesn't, sink into the soft ground as easily because you've got more ground coverage when you need it. So, and we got that. That's actually patent pending. There's nothing else that's really like that out there. So.
Wow, you're all these improvements you've made makes me want to get another one. I need some of those things on there, especially that bigger handle. That really is intriguing. I was just going to quick ask: is orange the only color available? Right?
Yeah, we're kind of like Henry Ford. You have any color Model T as long as it's black.
Yep.
Yeah, the orange is our color.
It just seemed like, I don't know, maybe like a pink one, or lime color or something like
a pink ladies Glock kind of thing, like.
Yeah. So I used the LogOx.
Just in time for Valentine's Day.
Yeah. I use the LogOx, and I agree about the one critique. Okay, now I think it's a dynamite tool. Totally loved it. Where I would have recommended improvement was those pins, and it wasn't the pin itself, but the cotter pin. To get it, and wearing gloves. You're usually in the cold weather, and then if you were to drop one, I had thought of like a little magnet on the side of it, so that they could stick to while you're fumbling with it. But Dan,
and let me interrupt you, but Dan, to your initial point, we do sell like an upgrade package. So obviously the new ones, they all have these, but we have to sell an upgrade package, the longer handle, the timberjack, and then the new pins. Mm-hmm. And Joe, to your point, we do sell just the pins too,
nice.
As well.
Oh, wow.
So we made everything just like we make everything modular and interchangeable in our own in the tool itself. We made this so that all of this new version of it would fit the previous one. So no one has to go out and buy an entirely new LogOx unless they want to. Like say, get the wider handle, like you were saying, Dan.
I had found something ironic about the LogOx too, because I don't know, Dan, don't you think me and Dan are the end user here? The thing that gets your attention is the hook and picking the logs up off of the ground, right? That's what I think of. I mean, that's what I think people think of when they think of the LogOx. But what I found to be really good, and what I probably would use the most, is the timberjack. That really works. Just think about all the times you've run your tip into the ground, or you got pinched, and just using something simple as that. I had never used anything like that before. And when I was demonstrating it, I had it on my channel and I did a video about it, and it was very well received. But that's the one I liked, was that timberjack. That's really cool.
Yeah, and in fact, that's something that I'd say gets some of the most attention at the shows. Is we always have a log that's propped up with a timberjack, and we do that because people will stop by and say, "What the heck is that thing?" It's not something. These tools have been in the timber industry, logging industry, kind of niche stores, right? That people who are really involved with it know about. But you're not going to see us at like a Home Depot, although we do sell it online through the Home Depot now. But your typical hardware store is going to having a timberjack or something, for instance. But you're absolutely right. And I point out to people that not only you're going to save time in multiple different ways. One is you're going to be able to basically hot saw your way through that. As fast as you can go, and you're not going to slow down to stop and before you hit the ground. No, because no matter how good of a sorter you are, you still have to slow down and you have to adjust how you're doing that. So that's going to save you time. You're not going to obviously waste time if you do run your chain into the ground, having to sit there and field resharpen it, like doing one of those for an hour, or change out your chain or break it or anything like that. And then you're going to save fatigue. You're going to save mental fatigue. I don't think people sort of realize that. It's like when you're doing this, you're just absolutely, focused on, is this going to hit? And it's kind of like that cringe factor. And you don't really have that with a timberjack, because you've got so much ground clearance between it that you're able to just sort of casually make those cuts. And then I tell people, you don't necessarily have to reposition it once you get to the end, the obvious end. What I tell people to do is just, make your cuts sort of just like you would with a cant hook, right? Make it 3/4 of the way through, down the length of the rest of the log, and then just roll it over and cut those back pieces, and it'll work the same way. And people ask me about, okay, well, hey, how much of a log can you hoist up off the ground with this thing? And it's like, well, how big a boy are you? But no, in all seriousness, it's a lot easier once it gets over like 12, 13 inches or so, not to fight with gravity. Just use the cant hook, make your cuts 3/4 of the way through, down, stove length cuts down the length of the log, and then just roll it over and finish up your cuts. And it's just as easy and almost as fast as using the timberjack, to be honest.
Sure.
Yeah. What size? What's like the smallest for picking up rounds? What's the smallest that you can comfortably grab with that thing? Is it probably like 8 inches, maybe?
I'd say the smallest that you can do it with is probably around like 4-ish inches. We can pick up some fairly small stuff.
Okay, so
but we're working on something for that. We're working on a different tool for that.
So guys that run Husqvarna saws, yeah. So the guys that run the Husqvarna saws can still pick up their rounds.
Listen to you. I was picking up Dr. Pepper cans with my LogOx on my video.
That's true.
So,
that's true.
Yeah, it's a multi-purpose tool. So Austin, let me get this right. The LogOx was invented in America. It was designed in America. You use American steel. It is manufactured and assembled in the United States, and the company is an American company. Is that right?
Yes, sir.
Yeah. I just think that is that's just I don't know, Dan. I think we've picked a heck of a person for our very first interview, don't you think?
Yes, I agree.
A heck of a person, a heck of a company. But Austin, I know.
That,
yeah. So Austin, we've learned a lot about the tool. Let's learn a little bit about you. All right. So I notice you have a wedding band on. You're married, is that right?
I do. Yeah, I'm married with 2 kids.
No kidding. And where do you guys live at?
Up in New Hampshire.
All right. Is that where you grew up in New Hampshire?
First 10 years of my life, yeah. And then I moved over to Vermont across the river and grew up there.
That's a really long way to move, huh?
Yeah. But yeah, no, that's always blessed to be in wooded areas. Firewood was a big part of growing up. I just have a lot of great memories of, being with my family, and harvesting firewood. It was just something that always sort of brought us together. And then afterwards, you just sit around and enjoy the fruits of your labor on a cold night in New England, which do get pretty darn cold. So
Yeah,
uh,
really.
this business is kind of an extension of that, to be honest with you.
Yeah, and that was a family affair then for you guys. You mentioned about your early childhood memories with all getting the wood in for the season.
Yeah. So we had a tractor and a little trailer that we would fill up, and usually, like I said, we go out and scout the down trees, and then come fall time, buck them up completely, and usually process them right where they stood, and load up the cart and bring it back in, go stack it. One of the other products I sort of forgot to mention is we're not just a forestry tool company anymore. We've grown out since 2018, 2019 when we introduced the LogOx sling. I'm not sure if you guys are familiar with that, but John, kind of going back to the drawing board, same idea. That was my and my sister's chore, bringing the logs up from the basement, up a flight of stairs, and now he had to do that. The bag that we used to use for that was just a typical canvas bag with two handles, and of course that puts a lot of weight, on your wrist. It puts a lot of weight in your arm, your shoulder. Drags your spine out of alignment, and bounces off your leg. I'm not sure if you guys bring in firewood, you know exactly what I'm talking about, especially when you're going upstairs and moving around stuff. So what John created was he created a thing called the WoodOx sling, and what that is essentially is it's a if I was to describe it for your podcast here, for people who can't see it, the essentially a strap that goes over your shoulder, which is attached to sort of a U-shape canvas that one arm, your opposite arm, goes through a hole in it, and you put the logs, the split pieces directly under your arm, and fill that canvas bag up, and you can really fill up about as much as you could with a large size bag. But what that strap that goes across your body does is it transfers the weight of the wood. And it allows your spine to be straight. So the weight of the wood is transferred across your body, and the rest of the weight sits on your hip, kind of like a messenger bag, if you will. And that other arm, there really isn't much weight on that arm. It just sort of locks it in place and rests on top of the firewood. And oddly, it seems like the more firewood you put in there up to a certain point, the better it actually works. So you load that thing up and you're able to walk with it. And similar to what we did with Fairfield University, where we gave Fairfield University a LogOx hauler and said, hey, can you guys use EMG technology to be able to tell us how much less strain this actually puts on your back compared to picking up a log round off the ground, and also walking with a log round onto what would be the height of a log splitter. Can you guys be able to quantify that for us and do an ergonomic study? So that the Fairfield University School of Engineering did that for us in the LogOx, and they found a 93% reduction in back strain picking up a log round and compared to putting it onto a splitter with your hands. They found a 76% reduction in arm strain when doing that. And then they also found, which I thought was the most interesting part of this, an 89% reduction in quadricep strain in your legs when you're walking with it by your side compared to holding it in front of you. What's nice about that is with it by your side, you can see sort of everything in front of you, and you're a lot more upright. So with the WoodOx sling, we did the same thing with Fanshawe College up in Canada, and we asked them, hey, could you guys just test and quantify and prove our kind of anecdotal claims here that we get from people who have used it, that this is really a back saver. And they found, a 54% reduction in L4, L5 vertebrae compression when using it compared to using a bag, meaning that your spine isn't getting compressed by the weight of that wood because it's nicely distributed. And they presented that at an ergonomic conference down in Orlando this year. So we try to do that with all of our products. I'm sure you're seeing a trend here. Take something that's out there that we use ourselves, and like how if we can make this better, make it markedly better, and then make it right here in the United States. We make the WoodOx sling in North Carolina, the same place we make our bags as well. And then we also came up with this is John's brainchild too, is the hearth bin, which is an adjustable firewood rack. So it's basically a rack, or it's basically a platform I picture sort of a box-looking platform that has a space for the sling to go underneath it, but then it has two side panels that sort of fold outward at a 45-degree angle. Well, what's nice about that is that it can fit because they can move independently. That back panel can move and go flat right against your fireplace, your hearth there next to the fireplace. So when you're staging firewood for the evening, keep the fire going. It can fit onto that narrow hearth, and you fit a lot of wood there. And the other panel kind of goes out forward into the room, or it can be standalone if you've got like a Franklin stove or something. It can be standalone right there by your stove. So
the big thing I've found is just the back saving strain, and the other thing though is after the first summer of using it, I always used my one right arm, and so my arm was like twice the size of my left arm. So that's why I need to get like two of them so I can do, a dual, like almost like lifting weights, get like a workout full body. That's what I
There you go. Yeah. There you go. No, we've definitely had people buy a 3-in-1 and also buy a hauler, and presumably for that purpose. And then, and then like I was describing earlier, you could do the same thing kind of with a pickaroon and then just swap hands and do that with a pickaroon for yarding it. But yeah.
So I want to remind everyone, we are talking with Austin Roberts. He is the co-founder and general manager of LogOx, everyone's favorite forestry tool. Dan and I both have used that tool on our YouTube channels, and we know that it's earned its stripes out there in the real world, because it's obviously working in an industry that requires for a tool to work, because the good gets separated from the bad pretty quick.
Real quick.
Yeah. So Austin, I'm just curious. So you graduated high school, and then did you went right into the Army, or did you go to college, or tell us more about your background?
Yeah, no, I got actually recruited to play soccer. I applied to 3 colleges. I applied to West Point, I applied to Annapolis, and then I applied to Norwich. And didn't get into any of the service academies, but I got recruited to play soccer up at Norwich. And so I was in the Corps Cadets up there for 2 years. And then sophomore year, ended up doing a semester in Washington, D.C., and I was doing my ROTC over at Georgetown. And this was like 2006. So you got the war in Iraq, Afghanistan, kind of both raging at the same time. And it just turns out they had a surplus of ROTC scholarships for some reason that they just had lying around. And they said, hey, if you can get into either Georgetown or George Washington University, we'll give you one of these full boat, ROTC scholarships. And so even though it broke my heart to stop playing soccer, I got into both Georgetown and GW, and ended up going to Georgetown, where I met my wife. And I started rowing. I rowed crew instead there. I ended up doing that, so I was able to stay a varsity athlete and rowed crew for the last 2.5 years that I was there. So
there you go.
Oh,
yeah, and then I graduated from there and commissioned directly into the Army as a field artillery second lieutenant.
So, did your military training prepare you for your private sector work?
Yeah, that's a great question. So when I was I think that when you talk with anybody who was sort of part of the whole global war on terrorism, which was a sort of an exercise in ad hocery, especially for your company grade officers who were dropped into these areas and said, hey, we need you to be a little bit of everything and figure it out as you go. And in a way, it's a little bit analogous to being an entrepreneur and trying to figure that out. For the company grade officers and NCOs that day in and day out, like when I was in Afghanistan, we in the field artillery schoolhouse, learned a lot about lethal effects, which is going to be your, what people think of with the field artillery, lobbing high explosives at the enemy. But there's also something called non-lethal effects, and that was sort of a nebulous term that included everything from humanitarian aid to informational operations, IO as they called it, to doing intelligence support for a rifle company. So when I found out, or I got to 187 infantry, which is the infantry regiment, and then a rifle company that I was assigned to there when I was at 10th Mountain, my first deployment when I went to Afghanistan. I found myself as what we call a fire support officer, and along with my typical duties of coordinating, indirect fire, and then also close air support. I also was assigned a whole bunch of different tasks of hey, you're going to be in charge of this thing called the SERP, which is the Commander's Emergency Relief Program. So you're going to be out there building walls for girls' schools and wells and doing humanitarian aid type missions and stuff and figuring that out. Then you're also going to be the company intelligence support team guy, you're going to be in charge of doing different things to support, intel collection, other elements that that we need to have done for the company here in terms of working with the S2 and bringing in all the information that's coming from outside the company and then utilizing that in our missions. And then also you're going to be doing some IO stuff, some information stuff to try to tie that all together so that the Afghans know and appreciate the things that we're doing here for their country. So it sounded like, okay, I guess I'll have to figure this out. So fortunately I had some awesome NCOs and other comrades there that were able to help me out along the way. But I learned a lot from that process of just sort of figuring things out as I went, that I didn't necessarily train for. I don't have a business degree. I don't really have a business background. I was a government major at Georgetown, political science, if you will. So I don't have that sort of background, but I think that my time in the military was trying to figure out how to assemble the right teams of people and then complete whatever that mission is and just sort of figure it out as you go. And I think that there's a great benefit of working with veterans and hiring veterans who also have that kind of experience, because that's what they bring to the table. And it's sort of these soft skills that I don't know where else you can really jam that much into a 20-year-old's head.
Right.
That they're going to have the kind of responsibility that you have for millions of dollars worth of equipment, and then also the most important thing, which is the lives of America's sons and daughters. So it was definitely a formative experience in my life that I think has helped me in business as well.
Excellent.
So is that kind of then sum up the advice, or like you have any other pointers for somebody starting out in a business, what they might do to take, like something like you had, like a product or an idea and launch it?
Yeah, I mean, there's a lot of stuff involved with that. I think that part of it is having a niche that you've identified that you really love. Because doing that and loving what you do is going to keep you going when a normal, sane, rational person would have quit a long time ago. And I think that also that's part of it, but also too is that you have to have a kind of understanding of the product itself and what exactly would make it better. I don't think that the innovation happens around a boardroom table. I think it happens when people are actually using the product, and have a sort of a deep understanding of what the pain points are for themselves and thus for potential customers. And I think that's where we've really excelled as a company, is the fact that we use these products ourselves, and we're constantly improving them based on, first of all, customer feedback, but then also us using it and trying different things and saying, hey, how can we make this better? And that's honestly, that's one of the most fun things about the job, is that when there is something that we identify that is an issue, then we have full autonomy to make it better. And I think if you're a company, if you start out, you've identified something you want to do, you address that with a lot of passion, and then also continually think and empathize with your customers and think of ways to make them better and continue to evolve that way. Then you're providing a service. You're not just creating a company to enrich yourself or just to have a company and say you're the CEO of some company. You're actually providing a service that's going to help people with what they do. And in return, I think the free market rewards that generally.
Yeah. I would imagine that any family ran business, everyone has their job to do, but you probably at the end of the day, you work from that wall to that wall and from that wall to that wall. You probably do everything and anything. But is there something with LogOx that you find the most enjoyable, or that you feel that you bring the most value to the team?
Yeah, so I do a lot of our sales and marketing stuff. That's kind of my lane, as well as the business development side of things. Always, trying to find different ways to reach out and get our product in front of folks. Is kind of a daily activity that I like doing, because it allows me to sort of be creative. When we first initially started off, it was looking at we bootstrapped the whole thing. We didn't do rounds of funding or anything like that. We bootstrapped it essentially from our own savings and basically grew it over the course of 2017 from sort of a concept to an actually a profitable, sustainable business. And a big part of the way that we did that initially was to get it in the hands of folks like you, and get it out there and get people talking about it, and putting it on YouTube, building our social media, encouraging people to spread it via word of mouth, and that and I basically manage our different marketing companies that we work with, and some that we've expanded that out, and obviously brought on some more folks to help us there, which I manage now. But just the idea of how could we get this in front of more people? How could we, now we're looking at expanding globally, how could we get this in front of different audiences around the world? To me, that's always interesting, and I always like a challenge, and that's continued, especially in 2023, as things are rapidly evolving, things are changing, especially in the social media space. We'll be on basically everything but TikTok. That's basically,
you don't like TikTok?
That's basically Chinese malware. I'm sorry if I'm bursting anybody's bubble here, but that's looking through all the contents of your phone and wiring it right back to Beijing.
Yep.
More than likely. So, but we do experiment, and every single different social media is different. So we've tried, some stuff on Pinterest and some stuff on Instagram, and that's what I like doing. Is I like trying to figure out different ways of getting out there. Because again, it goes back to what I was saying, is that I have a deep belief that what we have is, for anybody who's doing this kind of work, is the best thing that they could have, the best kind of tool that they could be using. And I want to share that with them, and get that word out there, because I think it really is not a game changer, it's a life changer, especially for people who have back issues. No, Agribility, is a company, or I should say a nonprofit, based out of Purdue University, that they added both the 3-in-1 4-sheet multi-tool and also the Wood Sling to what they call the toolkit, or the toolbox. And the nonprofit is basically there to try to help people in the agricultural space who have physical limitations and disabilities. And so when they added those two products to their toolbox of recommended products for people with strength and other physical issues, that was a really proud day for me, because it really just kind of confirmed to me that what we're seeing and what our customers are seeing, and relaying back to us, and what the Fairfield University study shows with their empirical evidence of that the tool really is a game changer for people, and is going to help make their lives better by being able to do this kind of work with a lot less pain.
Yeah, and I think there's just that awareness of, I know it's, forestry, firewood, you think of that, but I think like you're onto something there where you're like talking about the storm damage, or even like tree removal, arborists, like dragging branches to the chipper, like that. I mean, that's when I've been on job sites with my urban logger friend. That's what I use it for. Just grabbing the bigger base of the trees and branches and just dragging them. It's a great tool. So where's like you said
real quick. To that point, real quick, the thing that really I think stands out for our B2B customers, for our tree service customers, is the fact that you've got so much versatility. That hauler totally replaces any kind of hand tongs or anything out there. It's got a lot more versatility than that. But then it fits inside a 30-inch bag, and that they can just stow and forget about it until they actually need it, and they can bring it anywhere with them. And so if you've got sort of a tight, backyard or someplace where you really can't get that kind of machinery in, but by gosh, you have to, move that stuff out of there, whether you're bucking it up and then putting it on the carts or whatever, that tool is gonna help, and it's gonna, save backs, bars, and chains of your workforce, which really is a huge investment. Of course, you want to keep your workforce healthy, and if you look at the washout rate of when people tend to leave the tree service, when it's hard enough to find people to work in it anyway, you want to keep those guys and gals as healthy as possible. So it's really kind of an investment when you think about it, into the longevity of your workforce.
Yep. Yeah, totally. And you had mentioned just earlier, just real quick. So LogOx.com, I think that's your site.
The LogOx.
The LogOx.com.
The LogOx, yeah.
We'll have links in descriptions and all that stuff here too. But you had mentioned, I think you said Home Depot, it's available like on their online store, right?
Yeah, Home Depot, Lowe's, Tractor Supply Company, about 30 different retailers. I don't want to name off a bunch because I'm sure I'll miss them, but we have a link on our website for all of our retailers that are authorized dealers. I know a lot of people get they get Home Depot cards and stuff like that. That's why we bring it up, gift cards and stuff they want to use. So more than happy to tell them where they can find that there. But yeah, no, it's been great online, and we really appreciate all the folks that have worked with us, and as we're starting to move overseas as well, bring the tool there. We've expanded some other folks, in England and Norway and Estonia and also in Canada now. So, and we're working on more. So hang on, it's coming.
Nice.
I'm looking at you, Australia. I can't. We get so many emails. Like, come on, mate. When you bring this down here to Australia, we're working on it. If you want to send us an email with a recommendation for a good store we should work with, I'm all ears.
There we go. So that is a great story, Austin. It is. Just from the grassroots up, it's just a success story, and I think it's just awesome for you and your family and for the industry, because it's provided a paradigm shift, a change in the way that we go out into the woods to bring home firewood or to clear land. I think it's just a great thing.
No, I appreciate you saying that, Joe. Thanks.
Dan, I think it's time that maybe we let Austin head on out of here. We've kept him for a pretty long time talking about the LogOx.
Yes, I agree. I think it's time to probably wrap this up. And
well, before we do, though, we're going to start a new segment of the Wood Hounds podcast, and it is called Wood Hounded. So Austin, you are going to get Wood Hounded here.
All right.
For a rapid fire question and answer session. All right. We're going to ask you a question. You're going to just give us the first answer that pops into your head. There's going to be 10 questions. You're going to be on the clock, and the objective is you got to get all these answered before you run out of time. Do you think you can do this?
All right, let's give it a shot.
All right, so here we go. Dan, do you want to ask the first question?
Yes.
And you can start the clock.
Yep, I'll start. And all right, are you ready?
I'm ready.
Bring it on.
All right, here we go. Left-handed or right-handed?
Left-handed.
Your favorite fast...
Throw a football, everything else right-handed by right.
Dan, he's violating it right now. All right. Your favorite fast food restaurant?
Probably TGI Fridays.
What is the car you drove for your first driver exam?
That is a Jeep Grand Cherokee.
Your favorite tree?
Ash. It's the way that thing splits.
Your favorite chainsaw?
You're trying to get me in trouble here. One that runs well.
Your dream vacation destination?
Like Maui. I don't know.
Wisconsin.
Somewhere warm.
Yeah.
Right, upper peninsula.
Youngstown, Ohio.
If you could have one, what superpower would you want?
Be able to speak every language.
Your favorite dinosaur?
T-Rex.
Oh, would you rather go to the monster truck rally or an orchestra?
Monster truck rally. Sorry.
Do you believe?
My wife not so much, but.
Do you believe in UFOs?
Possibly. I'm open to the idea.
All right.
All right.
Oh, I broke into a sweat with that one, Dan. I'm telling you.
Good
All right.
stuff.
Well, Austin, congratulations. You are the first survivor of being wood hounded here on the Wood Hounds Podcast, the world's largest firewood podcast.
Yes, the #1 firewood podcast.
Right on. Yeah, I don't know why TGI Fridays bounced in my head. I guess you can drink beer there or something. I don't know. I don't know if that's technically a fast food place or not. But.
Yeah, I was waiting for Burger King, McDonald's, Taco Bell, but TGI
beer.
Fridays I'll have to do.
Yeah.
Yeah. So we want to thank Austin Roberts of the LogOx company for sitting down here with us and helping us get to know him better, to get to know the company better. And I think it's exciting too, Dan, for the Wood Hounds podcast that we are in a position to bring very good people like Austin, to our listeners.
Yes, indeed. Thank you very much, Austin. Greatly appreciate it.
It's been a blast, gentlemen. I really feel honored to be on the show with you guys, and thanks so much for inviting me. It's been a lot of fun.
That's awesome. Yeah. Well, thanks a lot, Austin. I will never forget this episode, and it'll live on in podcast world forever.
Yes. And if you're listening out there, get yourself a LogOx. You won't regret it.
Yeah,
you won't look back.
That's right. Yeah. So we're going to put in the description notes all the links for the LogOx tool and their website. And Dan, we'll just keep following up with this. If you ever come out with a new product or some new innovation, we'd love to hear it. Give us a call, and we'd love to have you back.
Yeah, I would love to do that, and hopefully see you guys at the Bunyan this year.
Yeah,
I know I'll be there. If there's free food, I am there. All right. Well, Dan, what do you say we get out of here? Let's start the music and let's head on out.
All right. Sounds good. Once again, thanks everyone for tuning in. Thanks again, Austin. And Wood Hounds, we'll see you next week, 5 a.m. Wednesday.
All right. And Austin, one last pressure point for you here. Everyone have
a great day.